Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Eric here. So when I got into guns this year, it was because I wanted to protect my family. I wanted to protect my ability to obtain the guns that I thought I wanted. Watching a couple of YouTube channels, talk about certain 3 to 5 guns you should own. To be honest with you, I really like the look of the AR-15, so I wanted one. And I kind of feared that, the ban would come out on those and, we wouldn't be able to own them. And I was hoping that a lot of the guns, if you already owned them, they would be grandfathered in. So I started getting into Second Amendment rights and preserving my Second Amendment. I've recently joined Gun Owners of America and National Association of Gun Rights. Finally got that one right. I started supporting those causes with my money. Here in Idaho, we are pretty strong in our 2A rights. In some of the videos, I'll kind of show you, it'll show you a graph of the United States and who has the best gun rights, or as the other guys will put it, who has the least restrictive gun. Basically, is an NBC piece. And it starts out with mass shootings. And I'm a strong believer that it's hearts and minds that are the problem with mass shootings. And the video starts out with that, and the narrative changes. And so watch a little clip here. I'll pause it, and I'll kind of talk about the graph because it's kind of hard to see on the thing.
There have been an average of 11 mass shootings per week.
Police are investigating a string of deadly shootings.
Men opened fire on a group of workers, killing at least 8 people.
10 souls have been lost in Boulder, Colorado.
We mourn, and then the political debate begins again. A divisive political battle that is mostly decided state by state. And more often than not, the states with looser gun laws are ones that typically swing red, protective of their Second Amendment rights.
And every time there's a shooting, we play this ridiculous theater where this committee gets together and proposes a bunch of laws that would do nothing to stop these murders.
But data shows that states with stricter gun laws do have lower rates of gun violence. To start, let's look back at this map. The Gifford Law Center for Preventing Gun Violence ranks states based on how strict their gun laws are. Alaska, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, and Montana all received some of the lowest ratings. They're also the top 5 states with the highest rate of gun deaths. Hawaii, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New York, and New Jersey have the lowest rate of gun deaths. They also have the higher ratings when it comes to stricter gun.
Later goes this video with the higher gun deaths, and she lists, and remember this is a video about mass shooting, she lists Montana and Wyoming, which there's a graph coming up that'll show you those 2 states have 0 mass shootings. 0. Idaho has 1.
Gun laws. It often comes down to who can buy a gun, something that universal background checks regulate. States without background checks have an average firearm homicide rate that's nearly 60% higher than states that do. And in states where laws prohibit people who have been convicted of a violent crime from owning guns, saw an 18% drop in homicide rates.
Enhanced gun control rulings, and if they kind of go over like alcohol, drugs, and if your mental ability, mental capacity, and those are the federal ones, and there are states that have enhanced theirs. And if you look at the number 1 and number 2 states that have enhanced background checks, Texas and California.
In the United States, the Second Amendment gives citizens broad rights to keep and bear arms. The Supreme Court has several times affirmed this fact. But there are some legal restrictions on who can purchase or keep guns. Under federal law, to buy a gun from a licensed dealer, you have to be a U.S. citizen and at least 21 to get a handgun or 18 for a rifle or shotgun. Retailers also have to run your name through the National Instant Background Check System. Federal law and some state laws designate 4 main categories that restrict your ability to get a gun: committing a violent or gun-related crime, having a diagnosed mental illness, known drug or alcohol abuse, or crimes committed when you were a juvenile. These are all things that would show up in that background.
In this next clip, she's talking about states that don't have background checks. So I live in Idaho, and Idaho does not require a background check. However, a federal licensed firearm dealer must conduct a background check. I have been I filled out the NIC background check form for every weapon that I have bought. And I've gotten a few more weapons in the beginning. I'll be another video where I bought less expensive weapons, and they were quite disappointing. So I upgraded to the better quality stuff that has not been disappointing.
28 states and Washington, D.C. will block your access to a firearm. The same goes for alcohol in 18 states and the District of Columbia.
The pushback from Second Amendment activists often points to examples like Chicago. It has extreme and consistent issues with gun violence, despite it being a very blue city and has some of the nation's strongest gun laws. But a report by the Chicago mayor's office found that most of the, quote, crime guns recovered were initially purchased outside of Illinois, in states with more relaxed laws.
So in that first graph, on the right side shows mass shootings. And as you can see, mass shootings, it's kind of that West Coast with California being the worst, kind of the middle of the country with Texas kind of being the worst, and then you see the East Coast with Florida and Florida and New York, and then it kind of jumps over to Illinois. And she taught, her piece talks about Illinois. So this is kind of perspective. And then the next map on the left shows states that have their more restrictive gun laws.
Guns don't have to disappear in order to reduce gun violence, but the data is clear. States with stricter gun laws have lower rates of gun violence.
In her article, she talks about how Louisiana, the states with the least gun control or the smallest amount of gun control, have the highest gun deaths. Quit skewing your program. You're purposely doing that to try to sway about gun control. If you look at the raw data, the states that have the stricter gun control have way more mass shootings, which is what your article is about. Stick to the facts. It's just like the CDC report on children being the number one cause for children dying is guns. Well, that would be believable except for you included 18 and 19-year-olds. So the men and women that signed up in the military that happen to be 18 and 19-year-old, are those numbers coming from the Afghan and Iraq wars? 18 and 19-year-old, if they're old enough to enlist in the Army, they're no longer a kid. I mean, you can't include that in the kid statistic. Now, I'm not going to dispute that guns fall in the wrong hands, and, people that make poor decisions. I'm not going to dispute that. But there's from my favorite president, 1989, this is what Ronald Reagan said.
You pointed out that police would be so busy arresting handgun owners that they would be unable to protect the people against criminals. It's a nasty truth, but those who seek to inflict harm are not fazed by gun control laws. I happen to know this from personal experience.
I believe if we enforce what's already on the books, they seem pretty solid to me. There's been several cases here in 2023 where people have legally purchased guns that, had the system not failed and reported their mental stability to the proper authority or report it to the proper systems, then those folks would have been excluded from buying guns. There's no sense in putting more laws on the books that you're not going to administer and follow through with, that are just going to restrict good law-abiding people, gun owners, that want to go out and recreate with their gun and have fun. Thanks for watching. I hope this was educational for you. It definitely was for me. I want to reiterate, media, hit us with the honest facts. You make an article about mass shootings, make the whole article about mass shootings. Quit trying to hijack it for gun control. Just present me the facts. I'm smart enough, and I'm sure a lot of other gun owners are smart enough to decipher what is a cause of mass shootings, and if any gun control we would support without you trying to skew us. when media skews it and tries to, go from mass shooting to, well, this is the number one cause of death, it definitely gives me that distrust where I just go, I don't want to even give you a half an inch. You'll take a mile. So thanks for watching. God bless you all. Love you. Peace out.